So Nathan says earlier, Texas Tech fan, Nathan says, no effing way we're going after Nico. That was trotted out there as fodder by some earlier. I think, like Parker, shout out Stats of War, one of the best Twitter follows out there if you're a college football fan. He just said, well, I mean, this certainly smells like Texas Tech, which, guy who's money hungry and talented from the SEC. I mean, look, Texas Tech's just been poaching whoever because of a ton of money because they can throw however much money they want around there. And their quarterback, I think Baron Morton's solid, but I think there are questions about his upside there. So I can see why Parker would say that. But we did get a tweet that seemed to pour some cold water on that. Zach Barnett from Football Scoop. He said, on this front, source tells me Texas Tech is not involved with Nico. With returning starter Baron Morton back healthy, Texas Tech is not in the market for a starting quarterback. And that's a great decision. I'll tell you more on why. But well, there was that talk. I think that's a great decision. Good move for Tech. Good move for everybody involved, probably, that's not a marriage that is going to happen. I have heard some really interesting things about how everybody feels how Texas Tech has been operating in the portal and what that is going to do. Okay, so first, let's get this out of the way. Do I think that Nico Iamaleava has a higher upside, in his career than Baron Morton does? Yes, I do. And Tech fans probably get tired of me saying it because I've been saying it for a while now. That's always been my concern with him outside of the health is how high really is the ceiling? Now, at times, he looked very good last year. Displayed probably a higher ceiling than I would have thought. So we'll see. Maybe I'll look very silly by the end of this season. But the thing is, Texas Tech doesn't need Baron Morton to be superhuman because the rest of the roster now is good enough. The rest of the roster, there's enough talent there that it's kind of on a lesser scale. It's like the Will Howard situation at Ohio State. Just go facilitate. Don't need you to be a superhero. We brought all the big guns we could to put around you outside of that. And, just go do your thing. Don't worry about trying to do too much if you're Baron Morton. So for that reason, good to not go get Nico. I would say save yourself $4 million by doing that or whatever. I'm not sure that it really matters to Texas Tech, the money at all, with Cody Campbell bankrolling the thing, multi-billionaire. But you risk upsetting the locker room, right? That, just upsetting the entire balance of the situation. I've said this a million times already tonight, but this late in the game, post spring ball, bringing in a new quarterback like that, and the drama that would produce, the extra attention that would produce. If you were to bring Nico Iamaleava into the locker room right now, you'd get a lot of attention across the college football world. People would be wanting to know how that goes. Now, all of a sudden, you got a quarterback controversy on your hands, right? And I just talked about all that stuff with Baron Morton and hey, no pressure, man. Well, now you put a lot of pressure on him because he's got to beat out this guy that all the media is paying attention to. He'll get way more attention than Baron Morton will. That's just, you don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Texas Tech shouldn't, and that is good. And, on the front of hey, you don't need Baron Morton to do everything next year. Shahan Jayaraja from CBS Sports, I thought, had a great take where he pointed out hey, it has not taken transcendent quarterback play to win the college football playoff even lately. Will Howard, that was about the roster around him. Not that Will Howard was bad, but he didn't need to be he didn't have to be Cam Newton to win the national championship. It was just facilitate to the roster around him. How about the year before? Michigan. I mean, I'm still astounded that J.J. McCarthy got drafted as high as he did. That wasn't about J.J. McCarthy, man. That was about a team built to just run the ball and best offensive line in the country, tremendous running back. That's what that was about. Year before that, it was Stetson Bennett in Georgia. Now, was Stetson Bennett better than I probably gave him credit for at the time? Yes. But Stetson Bennett is a far cry from Cam Newton. You don't need quarterback play like that to even win at the very highest level. So if we're just talking about winning the Big 12, getting to the college football playoff, yeah, I don't think you need Baron Morton to be some superhero. Even then, look, I'll give him credit, threw for 3,300 yards, 27 TDs last year. But this was the interesting thing I heard. I just had heard that there had been some chatter, from schools, and it makes sense. This all stands to reason. It's not like I'm breaking any big story here, but schools around the country, and I'm not just talking about Big 12, ACC, or G5 or anything, but Big 10 and SEC schools around the country, a little irritated with Texas Tech because of what they've done to the market. they have thrown around so much money that it drives up the prices on, not just these guys, but then maybe comparable players who are looking and saying, well, player X just got this amount of money from Texas Tech, this 7-figure deal from Texas Tech. I should be worth that. Driving up the market for everybody, making it tougher for everybody to keep up from a financial standpoint. It's basically the same thing I just talked about with Tennessee doing in the opposite direction with Nico, being like, hey, we'll cool the market here by not giving out this ridiculous contract. And Texas Tech saying, hey, this is our year to go all in. We don't know if after this it's going to be the same. We may not be able to dip into Cody Campbell's money bags as deeply after this year because of the House settlement. It just is going to depend on how harsh Deloitte can actually come down on these fair market value NIL deals to see how much of an advantage we can actually make that. So we're going to do this now. We're going all in. You are not going to stop us. But then if that doesn't happen and it's still more of a Wild West mentality and atmosphere, then Texas Tech really has raised the bar significantly in terms of how fast we're rocketing up the price on all of these players. So just know, I mean, I found that very interesting that there is some real chatter out there about that right now with Texas Tech. And I'm not here to say like, hey, Texas Tech, you should stop for everybody else's sake. I mean, you got the money, go do it. This is America. We do love capitalism. So, you go buy the players, you got the money. No one can really, in this case, because the NCAA certainly can't anymore, nobody can tell you what to do with your money there. But if you're just a fan of somebody else in the Big 12, you can be looking around like, all right, yeah, if this keeps going down this path, this does get very challenging. BYU and Texas Tech are really the places that in the Big 12 could really keep up with this sort of spending if there continue to be no real guardrails. If the Deloitte plan doesn't have legitimate teeth to it, it becomes very, very difficult for the rest of the Big 12 to keep up. I mean, if you even have SEC schools being like, hey, man, could we chill a little bit on this? I mean, they're looking around like, how can we possibly keep up with this? Another thing, too, is if we get to this revenue share era and you do have to limit how much you can do because fair market value deals are going to be tougher to put together, then it becomes like you got to manage your cap well, right? You've got to manage that $20.5 million pretty well. You better watch what you're going to spend on a quarterback. This ties everything back together. But Jahan Jayaraj's tweet about like, hey, it hasn't taken elite quarterback play to win in the college football playoff lately. All right, yeah, true. So now maybe you got to look at it and be like, well, we definitely can't be giving out $4 million contracts to somebody with like Nico's skill set. That's got to be reserved for, it better be an ultra super stud, but maybe the money's actually better spent elsewhere. Maybe the money's better spent on edges and tackles. Where the edge and tackle markets are crazy because they're so hard to come by, the elite ones in the transfer portal. Maybe it's better to just bust out these $4 million contracts there and then take more of like an average under the radar sort of quarterback or, wide receiver, obviously, running back, however it is that you want to do it. But that's where GMs will become very, very important. And, what a surprise. Texas Tech has a great one there in James Blanchard. I guess I would just close with this, though. If you are a Texas Tech fan and you've ever complained about like, man, these kids just making too much money. There's too much freedom for them right now. This is too wild of an environment, too wild of an atmosphere in college athletics right now. Like, you may want to house that one because Texas Tech is as responsible for this culture right now as about anybody outside of the obvious that, like, look, blame the NCAA more than anybody. They never put any common sense legislation in 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago to try and make NIL a little more of a reasonable ramp up, let players make money, don't chase Johnny Manziel around like a fugitive because he signed a few autographs and took some money for that. Like, this could have been solved, obviously, in a much better way. But Texas Tech is certainly taking advantage of the system as much as anybody to really drive the prices up, drive players into this position where they're making all this money and where every school is having to pay significantly more money than they would actually like to pay. That would be